This is another episode of Standup Comedy, your host and MC, celebrating 40-plus years on the fringe of show business. Stories, interviews, and comedy sets from the famous and not so famous. Here's your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. I always make it a point to try to bring interesting and very funny people to my podcast. Right now, I have a chance to do a second interview with one of our favorite comics. He appeared many, many times at Laughs Unlimited, my comedy club chains. But much more than that, he's been on over 40 TV shows, including The Dennis Miller Show, Bob and Tom, Comics Unleashed, things on HBO and MTV. And he's an actor. He's been in movies. And even additional to that, he writes comedy material for himself, but he's also been very successful at writing material for others, which not everybody can do. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the show my good friend, Jeff Jena.
Wow.
Jeff, it's so great to have you back.
I didn't know there was going to be a studio audience.
Well, you deserve it, young man. You've had such an amazing career, not only a very successful stand-up comic that has done clubs from coast to coast and cruising and all the different jobs that a stand-up does, but you've taken it to the next level that not a lot of people can do, which includes TV appearances, acting in movies, writing for other comics. I mean, you really have taken this industry, this art form to its full extent.
I've been very lucky, man. I've been very fortunate to have a lot of things go my way and to do what I love doing. I just passed the 45-year mark, if you can believe that.
No way.
But I started in '78 in Houston, Texas, at the Comics Annex, and which seems like a different lifetime now, but it's been great. It's been a heck of a ride, and still going on for a while more. Fortunately for me.
Yeah, I was going to say over 40 years, and you don't look a day over 30.
Well, you haven't seen me in a while then.
Well, I'm kidding. Of course, we're both in our what some people think your senior stage, but I think much like me, you have that type of personality that we're not ever going to really stop doing what we enjoy and love. And it's not about the money. It's about being productive and really enjoying the interaction with the audiences. And I didn't know. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was going to say, it's not about the money because, it's funny because just before I came on with you, I was talking to an old buddy of mine whose name is Tim Schlegel, comic from the Chicago area. I've known him for a million years. And we were talking just before I came on with you. And I told him, I said, during COVID, I didn't perform for over a year. I didn't go out for over a year. I did a couple of these goofy Zoom shows, which I didn't especially like, but I thought, well, I'm going to just quit. I'm just going to not do it anymore. And I couldn't do it, offer it after the COVID kind of stopped, I wasn't really pursuing work, but the phone rang a few times and I'm like, yeah, okay. And now I'm just,
well,
as I told Tim, I'm not working all the time, but I'm getting all the work done.
Right. So, and what's interesting, and this has been explained by other comics and on the podcast before, but the work that we're in, but more you than me even, is there's a certain addiction to the interactions with an audience, how real it is, how raw it is, and each and every time. And ladies and gentlemen in the audience, we're not talking about TV shows or even acting, which has its own special aspects. But there's nothing quite like stand-up comedy and that intimate relationship with each and every audience, which is always different. There's
nothing like getting the admiration of a room full of strangers.
Yeah.
There's nothing. And this is what I think. And I mean, when we look at the number of guys who perform live, comedians, singers, musicians, we look at the number of comedians and musicians and singers who at some point have substance abuse problems. I think it's because, and by the way, I'm not a doctor. And I'm not a therapist.
Oh, you played one on TV,
So,
but I'm bummed.
I did actually, but I did. But and this is just like my own theory from observations in my own life. It's like the thrill you get, the high you get from performing, and then you come off and it's gone. And I think a lot of performers try to recreate that feeling of that euphoria you get when you're on stage,
but doing it chemically. Yeah, it's not
by doing with substance abuse. It's crazy. So. And it is a rush. It's a real high to be on stage, and especially when it's cooking and when it's working. There's just nothing like it.
Yeah, I agree, and I do not have the experience or the talents that you have, but I love still getting on stage and doing what I do, my little monkey dance. But the thing that's interesting about the industry, this art form, and I think even more so than musicians and actors in a play or something, because they kind of go out and do the same thing no matter what. I think stand-up comedy is the only industry, the only art form where whether you have 10 people in the audience or 10,000 people, the audience is always different. You have to read the room, and you have to find some way to gel with those 10,000 people or those 10 people. And so unlike some of the other art forms, it was really different show to show. And that adds not only a challenge, but I think an additional appreciation for the moment.
Yeah, it's funny. I used to listen to actors talk, and I've done a little like acting on stage and on movies. I used to say, they call me when they run out of real actors. But you hear actors go, I'm every night I go out trying to find something a little different in the character. And I just think that's such crap. But I understand it as a comedian, because every night when I go on, I try to explore something different on stage and find something different. And for an actor, if you were just going on every night and just reciting the lines and doing exactly the same show night after night, it would get incredibly boring. Especially if you were in a long run and doing a play for 6 months or a year, and I understand, and I now understand what they mean when they say that. I go, yeah, you have to try to find something different every night, or else it becomes, you're just, reciting. You could just watch a hologram do it.
Yeah, it is interesting on how all these art forms have their own respect and their own challenges. But I still feel that stand-up it's just a little bit different. You know what's interesting, and I wanted to share with the audience, with your permission, not only have you had this 40-plus year amazing career of stage and stand-up, acting and writing, but you're still performing. You're around my age. We're what most people would think you're past retirement age, and yet we're still active and doing things. But you went through a recent medical scare that most people would think would make you stop and just, become one of those couch potatoes watching soaps. Would you mind sharing with the audience what happened?
Not at all. I've always been physically active.
You're a great golfer.
I'm not going to say I've eaten the healthiest diet all the time, but I've always been very physically active. I used to run marathons, and I get out, and I still, I'm 70 now. I still walk every day. I still exercise every day. But last fall, I was feeling a little weird, and my wife and I had been talking for a while about going and getting one of these heart scan deals. Just check out your heart. So we went, and I didn't have any symptoms. Like I didn't have chest pains, or my arm wasn't numb or my jaw didn't hurt, or any of the typical symptoms you would associate with heart attacks or heart problems. And I went in, and I had a CT scan, what's called a CT scan of my heart, and my calcium score, which is what you get, which the machine registers the amount of calcium that's around your heart, and calcium around the heart is what blockages are in your veins. Well, my wife, she's awesome. Her calcium score was 1. 0 is perfect.
They always
1.
beat us. Okay.
I know. My calcium score was almost 800.
What?
Which, and they mean, and they say anything over 300 is really bad. So they started doing some secondary testing, and they found that I had 3 really bad blockages in my heart. And in fact, when did the test, the last test they did was a cardiac catheterization, where they put a wire into your heart and they look at the blood flow actually in your heart. The technology is astounding.
Wow.
And my cardiologist says, when I'm in there, if I see a blockage, I'm probably going to do a stent because I want to be aggressive. I don't want to have to do it again. I'm like, cool, man. So when I wake up from this test, my cardiologist is there, and there's another doctor there, and he goes, hi, I'm Dr. Miller. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon. You need a triple bypass.
Oh, geez.
And I'm like, what? And so we go to his office the next morning, my wife and I, and he's showing us the pictures from the catheterization the day before. And he's saying, yeah, you got about a 95% blockage here in your main, what they call the widowmaker artery. And this other major artery, you got about a 92% blockage. He goes, you're a huge heart attack just waiting to happen.
Wow. So
like,
lucky you caught that, Jeff.
I know. And I'm like, hey, I might want to get a second opinion before I lay down and let you cut my chest open. He looks at me and goes, could you wait a week? Yeah, maybe. Could you wait a month? He goes, I wouldn't. And so he goes, in fact, I would like to operate on you. And this was on a Friday. He goes, I'd like to operate on you Monday or Tuesday as soon as I can get you scheduled. I'm like, oh, okay.
Wow. And
he says, so just rest this weekend. Nothing stressful. And I went, I have a gig Friday, I have a gig Saturday, and a gig Sunday. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, I'm a stand-up comic. And I kind of explained to him. He goes, is it stressful? I go, not in the least. I go, it's what I love to do. He goes, okay, you can go do that. But he gives me a bottle of nitroglycerin tablets, which you are like an emergency thing you take if you are having a heart attack. And he goes, keep these in your pocket until I see you at the hospital to operate on you.
Wow.
So it was weird. And so the following Tuesday morning, I went in and I had an operation for a triple bypass. And I told you this before, I'll say it again. So when they're wheeling you in there to the operating room, and I'm thinking, wow, this is really happening. This is crazy. And they're, and they say, oh, there's a 95% success rate with this operation. But then you start thinking about that means 5% of the people, 1 out of 20, don't make it. And so you're wheeling in there going, this could be the last. You're looking up the lights and the guy coming in to give you the anesthesia, and you're thinking, this could be the last thing I ever see. This could be it. But fortunately, I woke up again, and now that I'm,
I was going to ask, did it work?
4 months later, I feel great. Back to working. I'm back to exercising. And so it's, but my point is this is especially older people, go get checked out, man. Get a cancer screening, get a heart screening, and you might, the life you save might be your own. Wasn't that an old commercial for something?
Well, we can make jokes about it now, but I have to say that being an older gentleman as well, that those kind of thoughts and going through that, actually, like you said, being rolled down the hall and you're watching the ceiling tiles go by, you have to definitely be evaluating the life you've led and is this it or not? And that is just scary. There's just no other way to go through it.
It's I told my wife, I said, one of the happiest moments of my life was when I woke up, in pain. I'm like, I'm alive,
Right.
I made it.
Oh,
So,
man.
But I'm doing great now. I feel great. I got no complaints. So that's what I would say to people: get checked out, man, because you never know.
And it's so,
honest, before I went in, I felt great.
Right. And it's one of those things that I don't know what it is about men, other than we're just basically dumb. But a lot of men don't take care of themselves. I lost a very good friend who died of a cancer that is totally curable, but he didn't want to bother going to the doctor. He didn't tell his wife he was having issues, and it killed him. And he was young, and it was like, what? Why would anybody be that weird about taking care of yourself?
Yeah, we think we're invincible, and we're not. So
yeah. Well, I, being a friend of yours, was aware of what you were going through. You had the prayers of many hundreds of people with you that day, and we're also happy you got through it. But here, just a mere 4 months later, you're back up on stage. You feel invigorated. Was there any difference you said you felt good before you went in, but do you feel better? Is there more? Did it clearing out those pipes give you a little more oomph or energy?
Yeah, I feel great, and it's like I say to people, the progression is slow when you're deteriorating, so you don't notice how you feel really. You think you feel fine, but then once I have new blood flow to my heart, and that it's like, wow, I can walk up the stairs and I'm not out of breath. This is amazing. So
well, that was a three-way bypass is a big deal, but it's important to share with the audience what Jeff is saying is that one, take care of your body, try to eat right, try to get some exercise, but I think very important, get that once a year. At the very least, once every 2 years, check up and let them keep a track of your body. And then two, I think it's important to share that even though it's a scary thing and we don't wish anybody goes through it, medical technology has gotten to the point where there is a high success rate. The doctors are amazing. And look at the result of all this. We have a happier, healthier Jeff Jena. And I and all those hundreds of people are grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Well, it's a good message for everybody. Now, I want to take it back to stand-up comedy. Both of us know that a lot of what we present on stage is based on what's happening in our life. We tend to write what we know and find the funny in it. It's only been 4 months, but you're back performing. Has any of what happened creeped into your set?
Oh, of course it has. I always say, and I've told younger comics and some other people that, if you ignore what's happening in your life and you don't bring that to the stage, it's like going to a funeral and ignoring the corpse in the box. It's just so obvious what you should be talking
Jeff,
about.
Is that really the metaphor we want to use right after your story? But
yeah, I'm already doing some stuff about it, and it will expand too as it goes along. So,
well, I think knowing you, because you've always been one of the, I don't want to blow smoke up your ass or anything, but you're one of the more intelligent comics. You used to do a lot about money and math in your act, and you've got an intelligent background. I'm sure that you will take what's happened to you and your talent for comedy writing and find a way to not only make it funny to an audience, but to share a message of not only hope, but awareness of these kind of opportunities, of these situations.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the thing too. Is just if you can. There was a study at the University of Pennsylvania years ago that said information presented is like captured at a certain rate if it's just presented, but information presented with humor is captured at a much higher rate. So when we hide the message in the jokes and that, people tend to remember it a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that we've both experienced comics that are talking about, maybe having a scary moment in a car accident or going through a divorce or a challenge in a relationship. All that stand-up comedy is it gives you an opportunity to get off your chest what's bugging you. I mean, obviously, one of the simplest, I guess, is when people make a political comment. You can't really change the world or maybe have a personal effect on politics, but you can get on stage and kind of vent, as a lot of people we know do. But I think that stand-up comedy is really a mirror of our life. And that's why I just assume, with your intelligence level and your talent, that the experience of a three-way bypass and finding out kind of unexpectedly that you were that close to death has to have an impact on your material, which I think will add an additional impact on the audiences you perform for.
Yeah, I can't argue with you.
Yeah, I mean,
can't argue with you one bit, Scott.
It is really interesting how stand-up comedy, being one of the last bastions of free speech, allows us to share all these different dramatic, dynamic aspects of being a human being.
It's not only the last bastion of free speech, which it is, I mean, but it's also the last bastion of total laissez-faire capitalism, which is another thing I love about it. Because, in stand-up, there's no union. There's no work rules. It's basically the comedian, like me. I was trying to explain this to my son, who's a musician, the other day. I said, you're a business, and you can get whatever you can negotiate. And there's no rules. There's no guidelines. You're on your own, and that's the plus side. And the negative side is that there are no rules, and you have to do everything for yourself. It's like, I thank God that I woke up to this fact kind of early on, and I said, hey, someday I'm going to be an old man, and I'm not going to have a pension, and I'm not going to have, anything that, if I was working like what I'll say, quote unquote, a real job might bring me. So I got to take care of these things for myself. So I got to start putting some money away, and I got to start saving, and I got to educate myself on how to do certain things, because nobody can do them for me.
Well, that's poignant advice, Jeff, because I've tried to get across in other episodes of this show that it is show business. It's a business. And unlike other jobs, when you're an entertainer, but especially a stand-up comic for our industry, you wear so many hats because you're an entrepreneur and your product is you. So that means you have to take care of HR and payroll and marketing and advertising. And as you said, everything. Negotiations. And it opens up great opportunity, but also carries great challenges. And we both know people that failed at putting all that together, and then others that have succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. And
I want to say it was Tom Dreesen, maybe, who was a great mentor to me in many ways. I think it was Tom Dreesen who told me once, you get, as a comedian, society gives you incredible freedom, not only on stage, but off stage. Like, usually I don't have to set an alarm clock. I don't necessarily have to put on a suit and tie. There's but with great freedom comes great responsibility. And so you have an enormous amount of responsibility, not only to your audience, but to yourself, to do certain things. So it's a trade-off,
Oh, yeah. And Tom is a regular on this podcast, a good friend. And that is sage advice. And anybody listening to this show that's early in their career, listen to Tom, listen to Jeff. You have to take it seriously. It's so funny. So many people get into comedy, and most of them aren't even getting paid, but they're doing it because it's fun, or they'll meet girls or guys, depending on who it is.
Well, that's the other side of it. That's the other side of it, Scott, is like, do you want to beat it in for, do you want it to be your life? Or do you just like, this is something, I didn't originate this, but if you want it to be your job, you got to treat it like a job, and you have to go to work 5 or 6 days a week, and you have to work at it.
Yeah, that's so true.
And you and I both know a lot of people who had talent, but talent is only a part of the equation, and if you don't do a lot of the other work, it's not going to go anywhere for you. So.
Yeah, but I think you put it really well. It's a career versus a lifestyle. And I think that when you're young, maybe 19, 22, 25, you can get away with the lifestyle. But if you were really interested in turning it into your life or your career, as you pointed out, it's a job. You have to work and wearing all those entrepreneurial hats. Well, Jeff, as always, you're a wealth of information. We didn't do as much of the funny on this show, but I think we shared some really important facts. And thank you so much for opening
Scott,
up.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, man. You call me anytime, and maybe next time we'll just do the funny part.
Well, I think, to be honest, I'm really thankful that you shared the story about your avoided heart attack, but what you went through medically, because it's an important warning, and it doesn't matter if you're an accountant or a restaurant owner, whatever job you're in, that being mindful of your body and that we have to take care of ourselves as human beings is so important, and thank you for sharing that. Do you have anything fun coming up in 2024 that you're looking forward to? Is it just kind of gig to gig?
I started studying French over 3 years ago. In the year 2020 was my wife and I's our 25th wedding anniversary, right?
Well,
and so we were going to do like a trip to Paris, and so I'm not going to Paris and hang out in France if I can't speak a little French.
Well, so COVID gave you some time, huh?
Right. And so now it's been 3.5 years studying French, and I think I'm pretty good at French. I have no way to know yet, but we may go in October and finally go see Paris and hang out there for a few days and eat a croissant. And,
Well, I think that trip sounds amazing, and being able to speak the language will make it so much more fun and interesting for you. As always, ladies and gentlemen, keep an eye out. You can find him on Dry Bar Comedy. His sets are on YouTube. One of the funniest guys in America. Keep an eye out for Jeff Jena, and he's still doing live stage shows. So if you get a chance and you see he's performing at a show near you, be sure to check it out. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us today.
Scott, always a pleasure, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you too, sir. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that interview with comic Jeff Jena. And as always on this podcast, we like to share a little great stand-up comedy. So sit back and enjoy some stand-up comedy by the very funny Jeff Jena.
Anyway, we're driving home. It's late at night. My son, he's in the back. He's in the NASA-approved astronaut safety seat. Now, my wife, Carrie, she's up here in the front, and she's going through what these young moms call the diaper bag. But young dads, it ain't about diapers, is it? No. That's the bag of life. For any possible emergency that might arise. Oh, there's diapers and wipes and a little Desitin and some baby powder. And then there's like this giant bar that's got milk and water and 6 kinds of juice, because I don't know what the boy's going to want to drink if he wakes up. And then there's a hypodermic needle filled with epinephrine in case a bee flies into the car and happens to sting the child. He might have an allergic reaction. You got to jam him in the heart and stop the allergic reaction. And then there's a nuclear radiation suit, because a bomb can go off when we're out. What's wrong with you? Don't you love your child? That's because these young moms are what they call helicopter moms. You ever hear that term before? It means they hover over their kid, try to protect them from every bump and scrape in life. And you older moms here tonight, back me up on this. Not possible. And my wife, Carrie, the worst. The worst. I remember Miles about 3 years old. We're walking down the street one day. He's got mommy saying, like, Mommy, 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 Mommy. What's that? She goes, oh, son, those are ants. Ants. And we're there for the next 35 minutes for a lecture on ants and community insects and how they build their sandcastle homes and how they follow each other with their 35 minutes. You think my mother had time for that? 9 kids, she's trying to get us all somewhere. You're going, hey, Mom, what's that? She's like, that's dead kid moment. So we're driving home. It's late at night. My son, he's in the back. He's in the NASA-approved astronaut safety seat. The love of my life, Carrie, she's up in the front. She's going through the bag of life. All of a sudden, she looks up at me in a panic. Panic. We are out of Pampers. We're out of Pampers! I said, baby, relax. We are 15 minutes from home. She goes, excuse me. Did I ask you where we were? Pampers now. Oh, look at that young dad. He's having flashbacks right now, man. I'll whip up the ramp off the interstate. Fortunately, there's a drugstore right at the top of the ramp there. I jump out of the car in my best Starsky and Hutch. I said, baby, that's an old reference, but you can use it. I said, baby, he's asleep. You stay here with him. I'm going to run and get some Pampers. I'll be right back. First young woman working on ramp, I go, sweetheart, I'm in a huge hurry. I need some diapers. See, some of the older people getting ahead of the story here. She takes me to the Depends aisle. So I don't need to hear any old dad jokes out of all y'all tonight.
That was Jeff at a recent recording. He is a very, very funny guy. I hope you enjoyed his short interview and also this little bit of stand-up comedy. We really appreciate you listening to the show. Be sure to tell your family and friends, share it. If you get a chance, go on Apple or Spotify and rate it. But just keep coming back, and we'll keep you entertained and laughing, I hope. All right, we'll see you next week for another great show. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC. For information on the show, merchandise, and our sponsors, or to send comments to Scott, visit our website at www.standupyourhostandmc.com. Look for more episodes soon and enjoy the world of stand-up comedy. Visit a comedy showroom near you.